I just spent a full month living in Portugal, and these are the things that I wish I knew before spending time up in Porto. So the first thing was a huge mistake on my side, and I listened to everybody. I listened and thought that Lisbon was the place that you wanted to spend all your time and not Porto. Everybody was wrong. No, Porto was just magical, beautiful, romantic, like just truly the place to be. If I had a choice of a full month, I think I would spend 25 of the 30 days up in Porto. I'd give Lisbon a couple days. That's really what I'd do. Porto was just spectacular. I cannot recommend it enough. You should not prioritize Lisbon over Porto. I just don't know why you would. Everything was better, and we're gonna get into a lot of that stuff. So another tip that I think is really important is when you arrive in Porto, it feels a little bit gritty. There's a lot of graffiti. It's not the cleanest city in the world, but it's certainly cleaner than Lisbon. Some things are kind of falling apart. It just feels like, I don't know, bit gritty, but don't let that scare you away. It is part of the charm. There is spectacular street art and just beauty everywhere you look, so learn to embrace that because it really is such an incredible and special place. The next thing to note is Porto is way up north, so while you're still going to get plenty of sunshine, don't be surprised if you get a lot of rainy days as well, and you're going down steep hills, so bring the proper shoes, make sure that you're ready for the hills, and take things slow. The surfaces can get really, really slick, so just be careful there. Also, I've seen some travel guides talking about packing an umbrella for Porto. Honestly, I think that's kind of crazy. Don't waste your time packing an umbrella. Just get one there. There's like a couple bucks on the streets. Just about every vendor is selling them on rainy days. So I'd avoid the hassle of trying to pack an umbrella. Just pick one up if it happens to rain while you're there. Another tip that might kind of sound weird is I think that a lot of tourists, when it starts raining in Porto, they all scurry inside. They're looking for the way to stay dry. And while you can certainly do that, I recommend don't. Porto is kind of special. Even in the rain, you kind of get the streets to yourself, and it's a different type of charm. So while yes, you're gonna get sunny days there, don't be afraid of those rainy days either. Embrace it, it's pretty special. The next tip is that while you definitely can use the public transportation system in Porto because it is pretty solid, you really don't need to. It's a very, very walkable city, a pretty compact city center. So I really think the charm in Porto is just walking aimlessly and just kind of wandering and enjoying. So don't worry about any public transportation if you don't have to. And if you are in a pinch and you do need some public transport, I think Bolt is actually the easiest thing. A lot of tourists make the mistake of thinking Uber is the best option. And Uber is totally fine, but you're gonna save 20 to 30% if you use Bolt. It's the exact same thing, it's just the local version of Uber. Why not save the cash? This next tip is true in most of the big cities in Portugal, definitely in Porto as well, and it's that you need to make reservations in advance for dinner. If you're wanting to go to some of those better places, you're gonna have to do that reservation. And note that dinner happens later here, typically between 7 and 10 p.m. If a restaurant is open between the hours of 4 and 7, forget it, it's probably serving just tourists. But even if you can't get a reservation at certain spots, try showing up right when they open or kind of in that 7 to 7:30 hour. Most of the locals aren't gonna show up until 8 to 9 p.m., so you might still have a shot even without reservation. There's gonna be a couple places that I mentioned later in this video, and that worked for us there, so definitely keep that in mind. The next tip is if you are just spending a couple days up in Porto, which again you shouldn't, you're probably wanting to go to the bookstore that everybody wants to go to. And yes, it is gorgeous, but note just a couple of things. First and foremost is that you need to buy a ticket in advance. You cannot just show up and enter. You have to have a ticket, and those tickets, when they go on sale, they actually sell out pretty quick. We tried buying tickets on a Thursday for that upcoming Saturday, and the entire Saturday time slot was all sold out. Another thing around the bookstore is, look, it's a tourist trap at this point. It is a spectacularly beautiful place, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't go and do it. It's gonna be packed with people. They have it very organized. It's like every 30 minutes, there's a new wave of tourists going in, and the place is just packed. So be aware of that. But another mistake that I see tourists make around the bookstore is the price of your ticket. It's not just an entry ticket. Your ticket cost will actually be credited towards any book in the store. So don't just let it go to waste. Go ahead and pick up a book as a souvenir. But another thing is a lot of tourists end up trying to buy merchandise in the store with that. it doesn't work for merchandise. It has to be an actual book, so keep that in mind ahead of time. Now, I'm gonna jump into my can't miss spots in just a second, but first, I wanna give you a tip as a little bit of a warning. I'm sure if you're going up to Porto, you are definitely excited about the port wine, and you should be. It's awesome, but definitely note, especially if you're coming from the US or anywhere else drinking non-port wine, port wine has a much higher alcohol content than every other wine. So pace yourself, be careful, and just, yeah, enjoy it, but enjoy responsibly. Now let's talk about some of those can't miss places because there are so many in Porto. In my opinion, the best food in the entire country is all up in Porto. But if you're looking for the best views, the first one is Moradero de Vitoria. It's a spectacular spot. There's gonna be a lot of tourists, but the views really are spectacular. So as you're walking through town, make sure to stop by that. But if you're wanting a viewpoint recommendation where you're not gonna have as many tourists and are more so gonna have locals, there's a park called Jardim de Moro, and it's a spectacular spot. It overlooks the city. It's gonna be packed basically around sunset every single night because the views just are unmatched. So definitely go and check that out. But if you're looking for a place with even less people, there's a wonderful coffee shop called My Coffee Porto. Really, really tiny, kind of hole in the wall type of place. Only a couple seats inside and one table outside with spectacular views. So if you can get up early enough and secure that spot, you're gonna be sipping your coffee with unmatched views with nobody else around you. So highly recommend them. But let's talk food now. If you're looking for some of the best night food in town, gotta try a place called Gazella. Note that it is a cash-only place. It is a local experience. It's a spot where Anthony Bourdain went, and their most popular dish is something called a cachorrino. It can only be found up in Porto. It is spectacular. Think like a hot dog sandwich type of thing, but not the Americanized version of a hot dog. Real sausage, great like chili oil like drizzled on top, perfect cooked, some cheese. It's spectacular. You'll go through a million orders of that, so I highly recommend them. If you're wanting to try some bifanas, there's a great place called Congo. They are always packed. They manage to move people in and out really quick, but again, it's gonna mostly be locals. A fantastic sandwich, but if you're looking for a really, really special sandwich, then you gotta try this place called Casa Guedes. It is a local experience. You're not gonna run into any tourists there, and they are known for their pernil sandwich, which think a pork sandwich. They throw some goat cheese on there. You do the chili oil. It's best thing I had the entire time in Portugal, and it wasn't close. Highly, highly recommend them. No trip to Portugal would be complete without some pastel de natas, and I think the best place in Porto for that is a place called Castro. We hopped around to a bunch of different spots, and we thought Castro's were the best. They were warmed up, you put some cinnamon on top of it, and I mean, just spectacular. So definitely want to check them out. If you're somebody who enjoys cocktails, there's a place called Terra Plana, and it is a wonderful cocktail bar. They also have some really good food, and I'd highly recommend them. Now, if you're a wine lover and you want a really, really special experience, there's a place called Capella Incomum, and it is an old chapel converted into a wine bar. Again, we didn't really run into any tourists there. You're gonna be drinking in a special place. If you're looking for a spot where you can kind of sample everything, their main market is spectacular. It is a really, really clean market. You can get a lot of different things there. Now, do be warned, there are gonna be plenty of tourists there, but I still do think it's worth checking out. And if you've started doing your research on Porto, I'm sure you've come across São Bento Station, which is the beautiful train station. Now note that it is not the train station that you're gonna be coming into if you're traveling from somewhere like Lisbon, but it is right in the heart of the city, and it is gorgeous. Definitely check them out. But after checking out that station, there's a place right around the corner that I feel so weird about recommending. I never thought I'd be recommending it on this channel, but it is just, it's one of a kind. It's the best I've seen anywhere in the world. It's McDonald's, guys. Don't buy anything there, but seriously, just go to the McDonald's and like take a peek inside. Your mind will be blown. It's just insane. I don't know how the rest of the world continues to one up the US, and even the things that we create. It's a little bit frustrating, but props to you, Porto. You managed to make McDonald's somehow kind of classy. But I highly recommend spending time in Porto. But if you are spending time in Lisbon as well, don't worry, I got you covered. Click on this video right here if you want to know what I wish I knew before spending a full month in Lisbon, or if you want an unfiltered, unedited look at just kind of what I thought of living in Portugal as an American, you can watch that right here. I hope this was helpful, and we'll catch you guys next time.